April 25, 1935. Coogee Aquarium, Sydney, Australia. The crowd gathers around the massive tank, their faces pressed against the glass. Inside, a 14-foot tiger shark circles slowly, lethargically. It hasn't eaten in days. The aquarium owner, Bert Hobson, watches with growing concern. Something is wrong with his prized specimen. Then, without warning, the shark convulses. Its massive body thrashes against the water. Children scream. Adults step back. And then, in a violent spasm that sends waves crashing against the glass, the shark vomits. But what floats to the surface isn't fish, it's a human arm. Fully intact. A rope tied around the wrist. A distinctive tattoo of two boxers visible on the decomposing flesh. The screaming starts immediately. Police are called. The arm is retrieved, still dripping with digestive fluids and seawater. Within hours, fingerprints confirm the identity. James Smith, a former boxer and small-time criminal who'd been missing for weeks. But the truth was far more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Before we uncover the truth about the shark arm murder and the conspiracy that nearly destroyed Sydney's criminal underworld, make sure to subscribe to Fear Sermon and ring that notification bell. We dive deep into history's darkest mysteries, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community of mystery seekers around the world. Sydney, 1935. The Great Depression has Australia in a stranglehold. Unemployment reaches 20%. Families queue for bread. Men sell apples on street corners for pennies. But in the shadows of this economic collapse, another economy thrives. Illegal gambling dens operate openly in Darlinghurst. Sly grog shops sell bootleg alcohol despite prohibition laws. Cocaine and morphine flow through the harbor alongside legitimate cargo. The criminal underworld of Sydney has become a parallel government, with its own rules, its own justice, and its own executioners. The harbor city sprawls along one of the world's most beautiful coastlines, but beneath the glittering water and pristine beaches, something rotten festers. Police corruption runs deep. Politicians take payments. Criminals operate with near impunity, protected by a network of bribes and threats that extends into the highest levels of government. In this world, men like James Smith try to survive. Smith is 40 years old in 1935, a former lightweight boxer who never quite made it to the top. His fighting days are behind him, replaced by odd jobs and minor criminal enterprises. He works as a builder when work is available. He knows people. He keeps his mouth shut. In Sydney's underworld, these qualities make him useful. But usefulness has a dark side. Smith knows Reginald William Lloyd Holmes, a successful businessman who owns a boat-building company in Lavender Bay. Holmes presents himself as respectable, a yacht club member, a family man, a pillar of the community. But those who know him understand the truth. Holmes is deeply connected to Sydney's criminal networks. He smuggles goods. He forges documents. His boatyard serves as a front for numerous illegal operations. And then there's Patrick Brady. Brady operates on a different level entirely. An ex-policeman turned criminal forger, Brady specializes in elaborate insurance frauds. He stages boat sinkings. He falsifies documents. He has connections that reach into government offices, police departments, and criminal organizations. Brady is careful, methodical, and utterly ruthless when crossed. These three men, Smith, Holmes, and Brady, orbit each other in Sydney's criminal underworld throughout early 1935. Business dealings bring them together. Money changes hands. Agreements are made. But by April, something has gone catastrophically wrong, escalating incidents. April 7, 1935. James Smith tells his wife he's going to meet someone about a building job. He leaves their home in Gladesville wearing his work clothes. He carries no luggage, expects to return that evening. His wife watches him walk down the street, turn the corner, and disappear. She never sees him again. The first few days, his absence seems unremarkable. Smith sometimes stays away overnight when working. His wife assumes he's found employment, perhaps out of town. But when a week passes with no word, concern grows. She contacts friends, checks his usual haunts, asks around the neighborhood. No one has seen James Smith. April 17, 1935. A man walking along Maroubra Beach in the early morning discovers something unusual in the shallow water. A large shark, approximately 14 feet long, has beached itself during the night. It's still alive, thrashing weakly in the surf. The man alerts authorities and local fishermen. This is where Bert Hobson enters the story. Hobson owns the Coogee Aquarium and Baths, a popular attraction featuring marine life from Sydney's waters. A live tiger shark would be a tremendous draw. He arranges for the shark to be transported to his facility, a delicate operation involving a sling, a truck, and careful monitoring to keep the animal alive during transit. The shark survives the journey. Hobson places it in his main display tank, expecting it to become the aquarium's star attraction. He advertises the new exhibit. Crowds begin arriving to see the massive predator, but the shark refuses to eat. For 8 days, the tiger shark circles its tank, ignoring food offerings. Hobson grows concerned. He consults with marine experts. They suggest the shark may be adjusting to captivity, that it will eventually feed, but something seems wrong. The shark's behavior becomes increasingly erratic, agitated. April 20th, 1935. Reginald Holmes begins acting strangely. Associates note his anxiety, his distraction. He makes unusual inquiries, asks questions about Smith's whereabouts. Some who know Holmes later recall his demeanor during this period: nervous, sweating despite cool weather, jumping at unexpected sounds. Holmes visits Patrick Brady multiple times. Witnesses observe heated discussions between the two men. Whatever business brought them together, it's unraveling. Brady, normally controlled and calculating, appears angry. Holmes seems desperate. One associate later testifies that Holmes said something peculiar during this time. Things have gotten out of hand. There's evidence that needs to disappear. Nobody understands what he means. April 24th, 1935. The shark's condition deteriorates. It swims in tight, agitated circles. Aquarium visitors note its strange behavior, the way it occasionally thrashes against the tank walls. Hobson considers removing the animal, perhaps returning it to the ocean, but before he can make arrangements, something extraordinary happens. The shark becomes violently ill. That evening, after the aquarium closes, Hobson and his staff observe the shark's increasingly distressed behavior. It convulses. Its massive body shudders. And then, in full view of several witnesses, it vomits up the contents of its stomach. Most of what emerges is partially digested fish and marine matter. But floating among the viscera, clearly visible in the tank's illuminated water, is a human arm. The staff stands frozen, unable to process what they're seeing. The arm bobs to the surface, rope still tied around the wrist. Even through decomposition, the tattoo is unmistakable. 2 boxers in fighting stance, one of the most distinctive marks a person could carry. Hobson immediately locks the aquarium and calls the police. If this story is giving you chills, hit that like button. The investigation that follows becomes one of the most bizarre in Australian criminal history, involving cover-ups, murder, and a legal question that would shake the justice system. Share this with someone who loves dark mysteries. Let's discover what happens next. Detective Inspector Tom Mitchell arrives at Coogee Aquarium just after midnight on April 25th. He's a veteran investigator, 30 years with the New South Wales Police, but nothing in his experience prepares him for this scene. The arm floats in a large container, having been carefully removed from the shark tank. Mitchell photographs it from multiple angles, documenting every detail. The rope around the wrist is professional-grade marine line, the kind used on boats. The knot is a clove hitch tied by someone who knows seamanship. But it's the condition of the arm that tells the real story. The limb has been severed at the shoulder, but not by the shark. Mitchell examines the wound carefully. The cut is clean, deliberate, made with a sharp blade. This is surgical precision, not the ragged tear of a shark attack. Someone removed this arm from a body intentionally, methodically. The tattoo provides the crucial identification. 2 boxers, one throwing a left hook, the other ducking. The artwork is distinctive enough that police quickly circulate descriptions. By morning, several people have identified it as belonging to James Smith. Fingerprints confirm it. The Sydney police bring in Dr. Victor Coppelson, a renowned shark expert and surgeon. They need to understand the timeline, the biology, the possibilities. Dr. Coppelson examines both the arm and the shark, now dead from the stress of captivity and illness. His findings are disturbing. The arm shows minimal shark damage, just surface scraping from digestive acids. Dr. Coppelson determines the shark swallowed the arm whole, approximately 2 to 3 days before vomiting it up. This means the arm entered the water around April 22nd or 23rd, roughly 2 weeks after Smith disappeared. But here's what makes investigators' blood run cold. The arm was in the water, not inside a body, when the shark consumed it. Someone had already removed it from Smith's corpse, tied a rope around it, and possibly weighted it down before it somehow separated and was consumed by the shark. This wasn't a shark attack, Dr. Coppelson tells investigators. This was murder and dismemberment. The shark merely became an unwitting witness. The crime scene shifts from the aquarium to the harbor. Detective Mitchell assembles a team to search Sydney's waterways. They focus on areas where sharks commonly hunt: the harbor mouth, rocky points, deep channels. Divers search for days, looking for the rest of James Smith's body. They find nothing. The arm becomes the only physical evidence of murder. Forensic pathologists examine it exhaustively. They determine time of death was consistent with Smith's disappearance around April 7th. The rope around the wrist suggests the arm was tied to something, possibly other body parts bundled together and weighted down. The fact that only the arm appeared means something separated the package. Perhaps the rope degraded. Perhaps a second shark attacked the bundle, scattering the remains. The investigation takes a crucial turn when detectives examine Smith's last known movements. Witnesses place him meeting with Reginald Holmes on April 7th. They were seen entering Holmes's boatyard together around 3 p.m. Multiple people remember this because Smith and Holmes were arguing loudly enough to attract attention. The subject of their dispute: money and something Smith knew, information he possessed. When police interview Holmes on April 26th, he claims he barely knew Smith, that any meeting was purely coincidental. But his story has holes. His hands shake as he speaks. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the cool autumn weather. Detective Mitchell knows a guilty man when he sees one. The forensic evidence presents an unprecedented legal problem. New South Wales law requires a corpus delicti, proof of death through a body, to prosecute murder. But they don't have a body, they have an arm. Just an arm. Legal experts debate whether an arm constitutes sufficient proof of death. Some argue it doesn't meet the threshold. Others contend that an arm with a rope tied around it, clearly severed from a body, is evidence enough of homicide. The case enters uncharted legal territory. While lawyers argue, Detective Mitchell continues investigating. He builds a timeline, tracks movements, interviews associates. The deeper he digs, the more he becomes convinced that Holmes killed Smith, or at the very least, knows exactly what happened. But he needs more than conviction. He needs evidence that will hold up in court. The breakthrough comes from an unexpected source: Patrick Brady. Investigation. May 1st, 1935. Patrick Brady walks into the Sydney Police Headquarters and requests to speak with Detective Mitchell. Brady looks haggard, sleep-deprived, a man carrying terrible weight. He says he has information about James Smith's death, but he wants assurances, protection, immunity. Mitchell refuses the immunity deal, but promises to consider Brady's cooperation during any subsequent prosecution. Brady, calculating his options, begins to talk. The story that emerges is one of greed, betrayal, and spiraling violence. According to Brady, the scheme started months earlier. Holmes had approached him about an insurance fraud involving a yacht. They would arrange for the boat to accidentally sink, collect the insurance payout, split the proceeds. Smith was brought in to help prepare the yacht, to ensure it would sink convincingly when the time came. But Smith made a critical mistake. He started talking. Not to police, but to associates, hinting he knew about illegal activities, suggesting he might need to share information if pressed. In Sydney's criminal underworld, such talk is suicidal. Holmes panicked. Brady claims Holmes believes Smith was going to inform on them, that police pressure over unrelated matters might make Smith talk. Brady says he advised patience, suggested ways to ensure Smith's silence through money or threats. But Holmes, Brady insists, acted rashly. On April 7th, Brady claims Holmes lured Smith to his boatyard under the pretext of discussing payment for work. What happened next, Brady says he learned only afterward. Holmes murdered Smith, likely striking him from behind, then panicked about disposing of the body. Brady's story becomes more disturbing. Holmes, according to Brady, decided to dismember Smith's corpse to make disposal easier. Using tools from his boatyard, Holmes cut the body into pieces, placed them in a trunk with weights, and dumped it from a boat in the harbor. But the trunk, either poorly sealed or damaged during dumping, must have leaked. The arm, possibly not properly secured, floated free and was consumed by the tiger shark before sinking. Detective Mitchell listens carefully, taking detailed notes. But he's skeptical. Brady's story conveniently places all blame on Holmes while positioning Brady as merely an informed bystander. The detective suspects Brady's involvement runs deeper than he's admitting. The investigation of Holmes intensifies. Police search his boatyard exhaustively. They find suspicious stains on the workshop floor that test positive for blood. They discover cleaning supplies recently purchased in bulk, unusual for a boat-building business. They find a tin trunk matching Brady's description, though it's been scrubbed clean. Most damning, they find paperwork connecting Holmes to multiple insurance frauds exactly as Brady described. The yacht scheme was real, documented in Holmes's own records. Smith's name appears repeatedly in these documents. On May 8th, police arrest Reginald Holmes for the murder of James Smith. Holmes maintains his innocence, but his demeanor betrays him. He's agitated, evasive, contradicting himself. His lawyer quickly realizes the case against Holmes is strong, circumstantial perhaps, but building towards something devastating. Then, on May 15th, everything changes. Holmes is released on bail pending trial. Detective Mitchell argues against this, believes Holmes is a flight risk, but the magistrate grants bail based on the unusual nature of the evidence. Holmes walks free at 4 p.m. The next morning, he's found in his car on Dawes Point, a bullet hole in his head. At first, it appears to be suicide. Holmes had been despondent, facing murder charges, financial ruin. But investigators notice troubling details. The wound trajectory seems wrong. There's no gunpowder residue on Holmes's hand. The bullet recovered from the scene doesn't match any weapon Holmes owned. Detective Mitchell believes Holmes was murdered, silenced before he could testify. The prime suspect, Patrick Brady, but proving it becomes impossible. Brady has an alibi supported by multiple witnesses. The legal implications reverberate through Australia's justice system. The arm in the shark case establishes important precedent. Courts rule that a severed limb can constitute sufficient evidence of death for murder prosecution, but only if accompanied by other corroborating evidence. This becomes known as the Smith precedent in Australian law, cited in numerous cases over subsequent decades. The case also exposes deep corruption within Sydney's police force and political establishment. The subsequent inquiry reveals that Brady had been paying protection money to senior police officers, that Holmes's illegal operations were known to authorities but ignored. Several officers are dismissed. Politicians face awkward questions, but justice for James Smith remains elusive. His widow receives no compensation, no closure. The rest of his body is never found. She spends years petitioning authorities, demanding answers, insisting that Brady orchestrated both murders, Smith's and Holmes's, and escaped accountability. Most investigators privately agree with her. Detective Mitchell, in his retirement memoir published in 1952, writes candidly about the case. He expresses certainty that Brady murdered both men, that Holmes killed Smith on Brady's orders, and that Brady then eliminated Holmes to prevent testimony. But Mitchell acknowledges the evidence never materialized to prove this theory. The shark gave us Smith's arm, Mitchell writes, but it couldn't give us justice. That died in Sydney Harbor along with the rest of James Smith's body. Broader implications. The shark arm murder becomes one of Australia's most notorious unsolved cases, but its impact extends far beyond the sensational headlines. The case forces a revolution in Australian forensic science. Prior to 1935, the concept of prosecuting murder without a complete body was considered nearly impossible. The Smith case demonstrates that partial remains, when properly analyzed and contextualized, can support homicide charges. This legal shift allows dozens of previously unsolvable cases to be reopened. Marine biology benefits unexpectedly from the incident. Dr. Coppelson's analysis of the tiger shark's digestive system and behavior contributes to scientific understanding of these predators. His work on shark stomach contents becomes foundational research, still cited in marine biology texts. The case provides the first documented instance of a tiger shark serving as evidence repository, a phenomenon that occurs several more times in subsequent decades. Sydney's criminal underworld undergoes significant transformation in the wake of the investigation. The exposure of police corruption leads to a major reorganization of the New South Wales police force. Officers implicated in taking Brady's bribes are dismissed or demoted. New oversight mechanisms are established, though corruption certainly doesn't disappear. It merely becomes more careful. The insurance industry introduces stricter verification processes for maritime claims. Holmes's yacht fraud scheme, laid bare during the investigation, reveals systematic weaknesses in how insurance companies verify boat sinkings. New regulations require independent investigation of all total loss claims, multiple witness confirmations, and forensic analysis of debris when possible. The case influences Australian popular culture profoundly. The image of a shark vomiting up evidence becomes iconic, referenced in novels, films, and television. True crime writers return to the story repeatedly, each generation finding new angles. The case represents something quintessentially Australian, dramatic, bizarre, involving the ocean that defines so much of national identity. But perhaps the most significant impact is psychological, cultural. The shark arm murder reveals uncomfortable truths about society during the Great Depression. The case demonstrates how economic desperation drives people toward criminal enterprise, how seemingly respectable businessmen operate illegal side ventures, how corruption becomes normalized when institutions fail to provide oversight. James Smith, the victim at the center of this bizarre tragedy, represents thousands of Australian men during the 1930s, working class, struggling, taking risks to survive. His descent into criminal association, his ultimate murder, reflects the dangerous choices people make when legitimate opportunities disappear. The community response is equally revealing. Initial public fascination with the sensational details, the shark, the arm, the tattoo, gradually gives way to horror as people understand the implications. This wasn't a freak accident, this was premeditated murder, dismemberment, and cover-up. The shark was merely an unexpected variable in a carefully planned crime. Coogee Aquarium, ironically, experiences a temporary surge in popularity. People want to see the tank where the arm was discovered, though Bert Hobson removes the shark displays permanently. He later sells the aquarium, unable to separate the business from the macabre association. The specific location where Holmes's boatyard stood becomes a source of dark fascination. Even after the building is demolished and replaced, locals know the history. Tour guides pointed out, ghost stories inevitably emerge. People claim to see Smith's ghost walking the foreshore looking for his missing body parts. These stories miss the point. The real horror isn't supernatural. It's human. It's the cold calculation behind the murder, the betrayal between supposed associates, the way Brady orchestrates violence and escapes consequences. It's the legal system's inability to deliver justice despite knowing the truth. It's the widow who spends decades demanding answers and receiving only bureaucratic sympathy. Modern forensic analysts occasionally revisit the case, applying new techniques to archived evidence. The arm itself, preserved in formaldehyde, remains in evidence storage at Sydney Police Headquarters. DNA analysis confirms James Smith's identity through his living descendants, but no new evidence emerges to definitively prove Brady's guilt, though few doubt it. The case influences how Australia handles missing persons investigations. When someone disappears under suspicious circumstances, police now maintain evidence storage with the understanding that partial remains might surface years or decades later. The precedent established by the shark arm murder, that partial evidence properly preserved can eventually contribute to solving crimes, becomes standard operating procedure. In the broader context of criminal history, the case represents a perfect storm of circumstances: the Great Depression's economic pressure, Sydney's corrupt political environment, the peculiar geography of Australia's coastal cities, and the random chance of a tiger shark consuming crucial evidence. Remove any single element, and the case would have unfolded differently, probably remaining completely unsolved. What makes it particularly haunting is the knowledge that James Smith's murder would have remained a simple missing persons case without the shark. Brady would never have faced any charges. Holmes might have continued his criminal enterprises indefinitely. The victim would have simply disappeared. Another casualty of the Depression. Another name on the long list of people who vanished into Australia's harsh landscape. Instead, a tiger shark's digestive distress created one of the most bizarre crime scenes in history. What do you think drove Patrick Brady to orchestrate these murders? Was it purely about money, or was there something darker at play? Did the justice system fail James Smith, or was this the best outcome possible given the unprecedented nature of the evidence? Leave your theories in the comments below. We love hearing different perspectives on these historical mysteries. If you found this story as disturbing and fascinating as we did, make sure you're subscribed to Fierce Sermon. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into history's darkest chapters. We uncover the cases that mainstream history forgets, the crimes that reveal uncomfortable truths about human nature and the societies we build. Check out our other videos on maritime mysteries and Depression-era crimes. These stories connect in unexpected ways, revealing patterns of desperation and violence that transcend individual cases. The shark arm murder reminds us that truth often emerges in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes justice requires a stroke of luck, a random occurrence that brings buried secrets to the surface. And sometimes, even when we know what happened, even when we know who's responsible, justice remains forever out of reach. See you in the next video, where we'll explore another lost chapter of history that demands to be remembered.